So many of us want the victory, but we're unwilling to take the steps and go through the journey to the victory. So it's very easy for us to sit from the vantage point that we are in and look outward and often assess other people. When we are stressed and our bandwidth is here, literally your cognition shrinks and your ability to discern and make good decisions is limited. It's like, how much suffering are you willing to, to tolerate and endure before you decide to change, before you decide to grow?
I'm watching the weather. I get a little excited about, when there's like a storm is a brewing kind of thing. But it looks like we're going to be spared from this winter storm that's going to be coming our way.
As the self-proclaimed king of icebreaker questions, the weather question is the worst thing to bring up because you go nowhere else with it.
Well, for me,
come on, bud.
I know, but the thing is, though, but for me, being from Buffalo, I mean, it's just like, I know what it's like to experience 2.5, 3 feet of snow. And when I think about Blacksburg and Harrisonburg, my son being in Blacksburg right now, I mean, like, he's never experienced that. And it's just like, and it's a lot for Buffalo to handle. It is just going to demolish.
But think about this, how well the companies who are telling you what potentially could happen, how on the edge of your seat that you are in anticipation, wondering if that flaky little white stuff is going to come down from the sky or not, only to find out that it's going to be 75 on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I wish that was the case.
But isn't it crazy how like they have your attention so much for something, like you don't care, and then all of a sudden, Yahtzee.
Well, the funny thing is that, I mean, I don't know. Do people even turn on the television to watch weather anymore? I mean, to me, that's crazy because it's just like.
Yeah, I would assume weather is the number one thing people are consuming from that perspective. Crazy? No. I think they need to know what to wear that day, what to be anticipated.
Yeah, but you can check that on your phone. I never turn on the television to watch the weather people.
I'm not saying I don't do either, but anyway, we are delighted.
Do you ever feel like you're being evaluated?
Never.
You're being watched?
Allegedly, potentially. Who knows? We are.
Today's the day.
Today's definitely the day. We put a call out to some former guests of the show. It said, hey, we're looking for some individuals who can really spice up another episode of the Fervent Four Show, episode 294, 5-ish of the show. You were so close to 300, Tracy. So sorry you didn't get to be that monumental day, but you were close. I don't think that bothers you whatsoever. But we put a call out to former guest of the show, Amber. Can't think of her last name.
Hamilton.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, just like the Broadway show. And she said, there's someone you have to meet. It's this lady, Tracy. And we won't say how she described you because that's questionable. But Tracy, we are delighted to have you. Thanks for being on the show.
You guys picked me. I'm so excited. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate this. Fun way to start the year.
Absolutely.
Based on the adjectives that were used to describe you, we had to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks. You might have to have me off the show.
There's only a handful of people that we probably shouldn't have had on the show, and I don't think you're going to be one of them.
I'll behave.
Yeah.
I promise.
No, please don't.
Mostly.
So Tim teased a little bit about being judged, watched. What was the word you used, Tim?
Evaluated, maybe?
Evaluated.
They did.
Do you, as he was using those words, as I was using those words, what goes through your mind? Is that really kind of like what you're doing, or?
It's what my brain does. It's what my brain has always done. Data collection. And thus I became a scientist. So sorry if it feels like that. I can't help it. I'm always collecting information. That means I just pay attention. It's a good, useful, helpful skill in life. It's really a protective measure, but
I
you can
find
use
that,
that superpower for good. Say it again.
yeah, no, I find active listening when my day is filled with nothing but active listening, I am just exhausted by the end of the day. It is really
It can be.
tiresome.
It can be, especially
Takes a lot of energy. A lot of
if you don't know how to turn it off and manage it or channel it. Yeah. You strike me as somebody who's assessing and evaluating as well. Or
well,
maybe
I
just good at
find
active listening.
well, I do try to pay very close attention. And there's just so much that goes on, like the underlying things and messages and stuff that's talked about, and like if you're not really paying attention or looking to see what is really being said or being done, it's really easy to overlook that. And so I think that there's just as much you can learn just as much from what is not being said as you can from what is being said.
Isn't
And I
100%.
think
isn't the
Context.
numbers that like body language is like 80% of the answer, not what's actually said? Like kind of on your point there?
I don't know the statistics, but I will say that yes, body language is a thing. But I think what he's talking about is more than just that. There's just like sensory overload. There's
yeah,
so much
well, but just
there's so much feedback and stimulation. So
yeah, well, just even in the sense of like before we went live, we were like talking about showing up. And so an action could be someone finding an excuse as to not show up. And it's just like, so why did you not show up? Is there a fear from a childhood traumatic event that you're like, nope, I can't do this podcast. I need to find an excuse, so like there's things like that happen as well. So it's just, in working with as many founders as we have, it's just interesting. Everyone's got a struggle. Everyone's trying to overcome something. And how do you identify that? And how do you get out of your own way?
that's so good. That's so good. That's so good, because that's literally what I want to talk about today, because, our businesses in particular, I think it's true for professional lives as well, but I'll speak to business because that's what we're talking about here, are limited to our willingness to grow, period. So let me say it another way. It's not possible for us to grow a business that transcends our willingness to grow and develop. So basically, we are the ones that limit our business's growth by our own personal growth. Now, professional development and growth is important as well, but that personal threshold dictates how far we can take a thing. So you're right.
It's
So the
fascinating.
cognition behind the thought processes, the values, and the beliefs behind what we're doing, whether they be conscious or unconscious, dictate our actions and our behaviors. And that's what psychology tells us. So that's the fascinating part of all the things, in my opinion.
How did you get into this? Were you always wired this way?
I think so. It's funny that you asked the question, because when I started my master's program, I asked myself the same question, like, how? Why? Where did this come from? It seemed like it's kind of out of left field. The Harvard part was not out of left field because I wanted that since I was a little girl. But the psychology piece was like, well, why psychology? Now, my undergrad's in biology, so I do love science and asking questions and analyzing things and figuring out how things work and tick and how life works. And so I realized that the extension was, how do humans work? Or how does the human brain work? So really, neuroscience and neuropsychology is kind of my jam. The brain is my jam. I feel like, that's the alpha and the omega. Everything begins and ends in the brain, at least in the container that we're in. Zach and I were talking about some other things before we started recording. So there are other elements, there are other things that are at play. However, when it comes to our physical existence and experience in this realm, we're talking about the brain and the body connection. And I think people are not very aware of how fundamentally integrated it is. And we try to separate the two, but you experience your life through this vessel called a body. And there is an intimate and intentional design for that to happen. And so you talk about feedback. There's always feedback, and not just external feedback, us watching other people. When we learn to read our own feedback, then you're really empowered to do some amazing things. Because our body is amazing and our brain is next level if we can tap in. If we can tap in.
I love that. It reminds me of.
Look, I got Tim smiling. What?
It's hard to get that,
I think so.
Yeah, he doesn't smile a lot, but when you get it, you're like, okay.
I mean,
you earned it.
I love that.
Okay. Was that smile
Well, it's
towards
because
me or Tracy?
I am like actively listening. My brain is just really
I can
processing.
see it.
all
This
of
is what I love, because I can see the eyes open up. This is what I mean. That's a perfect example. Like,
Yeah, and
on
then
a
at the end of the day,
cellular
he's gonna-
level, there are things happening that are activated and triggered.
At the end of the
Go
day,
ahead, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
he's going to be exhausted from this at the end of the day.
Okay, he'll take a nap. It'll be okay. He'll take a nap.
Okay, so I go to school, get a journalism degree.
Mhm.
I go and work in TV news for 3 years.
Okay.
And one thing that I don't believe I did beforehand, but I started doing, and I can't recall if someone told me to do this, but it was I would watch my portion of the newscast every single night back. So back in the day, I had a DVR. I don't even know if they still have those things, but I would DVR the newscast because I knew that my piece would be in there. And then I would like watch it every single day. And I say that because I think now that, I'm in the business world, I think that's so incredibly important. It's like, okay, why did you do that? Was there an outlier in there? Like you had to go really fast to get it on. There's all these little kind of parameters that are interesting. And I believe I can actually take feedback very, very well, constructive towards myself, like even if it's like, a negative thing towards me. And I think it comes kind of back towards that, where it's a lot of people aren't willing to consume that information because it's too painful for them. It's like, oh, your baby's ugly. It's like, well, your baby is ugly. You're just not willing to hear it and you can't improve upon it. And so just generally, like, what are your thoughts on that from a perspective of consuming what you do to improve from that? Because sometimes I'll even rewatch the show or aspects of the show, maybe not in like the full hour form, but just like, okay, like why did I say that? What was I doing in that? What can I do to improve upon that? So what are your thoughts on consuming your own material?
It's that self-awareness piece. So many of us want the victory, but we're unwilling to take the steps and go through the journey to the victory. And the two are extremely correlated. So you can't get the win without the growth and the development that is required. And even if and when you do, because sometimes there's happy accidents and you are fortunate enough for something amazing to happen, often we can self-implode that victory because we haven't built the skill sets required to maintain, sustain, or protect that win. And so when I say we are limited by our willingness to grow and develop, that's what I mean. And that, if you think about, I love the bandwidth graphic because I use it when I'm teaching all the time, because it's very similar to looking at a microscope. So depending upon which viewpoint, which lens you're looking through, and how far you zoom in or zoom out. So development and growth, societal development, community development, within your home or your own organization, personal development. So all of that development, I'm speaking on every single level. And I think societally, we're having challenges because people have refused to grow. We want the thing, we want the win. However, we have to evolve. That's the game. That's the purpose. Growing, learning, changing, building is the whole point. And so, but how do we do that? How do we take that abstract concept and turn it into tangible, practical actions? That's the question. That's the question I'm trying to answer with GLOM.
Well, and especially today.
Yes.
No one wants to listen. I'm generalizing. Not a lot
You're
of
not
people want to
wrong,
listen
though.
to it.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, no one wants to listen to anything other than what is going to the confirmation bias. It's a whole lot easier to hear that than it is to listening to the opposing view and trying to learn, trying to expand.
Yeah.
With that, I'm curious, like, how does one rewire their brain in this to continue to grow?
There's lots of ways. I love the question. Okay, so let me circle back to Zach's question about the development piece and the self-awareness. So it starts with self-awareness, in my opinion. Now you can start with external awareness, because we can look at things from several viewpoints. I'm a hand talker, sorry. Hopefully this is not messing up the conversation. Internal focus versus external focus. So it's very easy for us to sit from the vantage point that we are in and look outward and often assess other people. Like Zach said, it's a little more challenging and difficult for people to turn the lens inward. I think he said, look in the mirror in maybe last week's episode. And people don't want to see what they see. And he said he's become good at it, or at least adept at taking feedback, probably because you don't take it personally, because you've learned to be objective with that lens. So self-awareness is the place to start. And you can rewire your brain. Our brains are what we call plastic, neuroplasticity, not really plastic, but they have the characteristics of plasticity. If they didn't, we wouldn't learn at all. Even though we grow physiologically, psychologically, we can also learn and grow. And there are things that we can do to promote that growth and enhance that growth and accelerate that growth. There's an arc of development. So I love human development. There's an arc. We're all on it. You can watch a child. They grow. Their brains are really, really big. Their heads are really, really big for a long time. And then their little bodies catch up. That's growth. And then there's another spike. And then we hit a certain age. And then that growth starts to taper off. And so depending upon the season of development, we call it ages and stages, depending upon where you are in life, the effort that it takes to learn and the attention required to learn changes. So there's things that we can do to modify those variables to help promote the growth and the change. So self-awareness is where to start. And so this is why we talk about the self-assessment and learning about ourselves and knowing, having this internal knowledge of what our strengths are. And the science and the data and optimism and positive psychology tells us when we start from our strengths, less effort is required. So this is why during the work that I do with my clients, I want to know what you're good at, what comes easy and natural to you, because we pour gasoline on that. Because if we're talking about bandwidth and managing bandwidth, which is really the game, so that we can achieve whatever these big visions and goals are, you want to be efficient with the energy. So you were saying that paying attention can be very challenging for long periods of time. So if you know that, then you utilize, save energy in other areas so that you have that bank to pull from when you have to do a task that's very challenging. And we all have all kinds of challenging tasks all the time. I know I said a lot.
Yeah. So a question I have then is, are you recommending that you take your strength and focus your energy on doing the things that you do well better versus improving a weakness that you have and strengthening that?
Okay, so the assessment that I use, which is called the VIA Character Survey, like I said, open source, it measures 24 character strengths. not weaknesses.
Mhm.
Each of us have 24. We all have a different combination. That's right, Zach. And none of them are weaknesses. They're all strengths. You have higher strengths and you have lower strengths. It's important to incorporate all of them in the things that we're doing. And we are unconsciously. But understanding and knowing what your high strengths are and what your low strengths are allows you to intentionally and consciously move, maneuver, make decisions. So you asked earlier, why did somebody make that decision? And why did I do that? And why did the person, in the interview do this or not show up because of this? You will understand, have better self-awareness when you understand your strengths. It doesn't mean you avoid your lower strengths. You can build your lower strengths. And optimally, you want to, because you need them.
Right.
But you can also overuse and underuse your strengths. So like I said in one of our banter emails, was that the appreciation of excellence and beauty is my number one strength. And I know this about myself. I don't think I didn't know how to label it, but I knew this about myself as a child because I'm drawn to shiny things. You guys can't see all of my jewelry under here. Silver is the shiniest, most reflective thing in the world, on the planet. So of course I love it. It's beautiful.
Dazzled out. Let's go.
Listen, I'm not really a bedazzle girl, but
Okay.
quality.
Well, I clearly don't know what the word is.
Quality.
Okay. Wow. She just said bedazzled.
Beauty and excellence is quality. So not the quantity of a thing, the quality, meaning the characteristics of a thing.
What were the 3 words that you used to describe that?
What, for excellence and strength?
You just said like your thing is beauty something.
Oh, it is the appreciation of beauty and excellence is my number one strength, which makes me, so how do I use this strength? It makes me a very, very good assessment of people who have talent because I can see it.
Does your test figure that out, or did you have to figure that out? Okay.
I didn't self-label this. Yes, the test.
So,
This would have been fun if Tracy would have given us the test to take before the show.
Well,
I thought of this, of course, but
it just means episode 2.
There's no reason I can't come back. I would love,
exactly.
I would love to do this with you.
Part 2, yes.
And I've done.
When I find out I'm a lion.
Say it again.
When I find out I'm a lion.
No, there's not that. It's character strength. So, anywho,
I'm a carrot.
My second is fairness and justice, or fairness. So, again, knowing these things about yourself helps you understand why you make decisions the way you make them. Okay, why you move the way you move, why you avoid the things you might avoid, why certain things feel challenging, and because they are, because it might be one of your lower strengths.
This is exciting. Cannot wait to
take it. Is exciting, right?
To figure out what
it's powerful information.
My 24 strengths.
Character strengths, yeah.
Okay, so I believe, Tim might believe this, but on the surface, and maybe that's the key word there, on the surface, if you were to ask someone, like, what is my skill set? Like, what are you best at? What I'm going to say, I don't think most people would agree with. Tim, what would you say my number one skill set is? Because Tim probably knows me. Tim is top 5, knows me more than anyone, probably, I would assume, right? So what would you say my number one skill set is?
Well, the thing that's really interesting, Zach, is how much you have evolved over the course of the 13, 14 years that we've known each other. And that's been a fun journey within itself. So like, I would say like back in the day when we first met, you were the gregarious guy that would walk into a room and want to jump on the stage, and you would be the light that you wanted to be, that light. And now, you've matured in the sense of, you're like, hey, let's evaluate what needs to get done. We got to get it done. And being that light on the stage is not the thing that is most important anymore. Moving the ball down the field and accomplishing what needs to get done, that is what matters most.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
What did you hear in that? Zach?
I was waiting to see where the word evolved went to. Number one,
Okay.
I was no, I mean I would,
So your skill
be-
now, I guess, I don't know if it's a skill, but it's to me, it seems like you're very results oriented to accomplish whatever that goal is,
interesting.
the task at
Okay.
hand.
Okay. Feedback. Go ahead.
I think you can't be Peter Pan forever,
Okay.
right? The whole thing with Peter Pan is you never grow up.
I got
Sometimes you gotta grow up,
Yeah, I'm married. I heard you. Uh-huh.
right?
You
I don't know if this. I
you
don't know
can't
if
be
this.
12 in your soul for the
I
rest
don't know
of
if
your
this
life.
is the reason it happened, or just like
You guys are 9 and 12 in your souls, and it's a beautiful thing.
I think people would definitely agree with that. Maybe that's my number one skill set.
And we
Maybe
don't
I
we
agree
don't
with
we don't want to crush that out of you as I roll
No,
my eyes.
good.
But it's funny you mentioned that though. But like you're like there's times, Tracy, whatever, somebody will just hit a nerve with me, and I'm just ready to rant. And Zach's like, "Come on, let it out," and he will just let me just go. And so you are very receptive at that, Zach. And like his tone and demeanor will not. You got anything else? Come on, bring it. Just let
Yep.
it all out.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good strength. Oh, I can't wait to see where that shows up.
Okay, so that's what's funny because that's probably the skill set that I would have said I had is I think I'm an incredible listener.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe like part 1B on that is the memory of that.
Meaning like you recall the information
Yes.
from the conversation?
Yeah.
Yes. And so I can circle back very easily to something and not have one conversation with someone for 15 minutes, 7 years later, come back, somehow recycle it in this dome, bring it back and be like, yo, where are you with the annexation of Puerto Rico? Did you actually do it? Which is actually, a famous line and play from the great hit movie Little Giants.
So that is, well, okay, we're not measuring that in the assessment, but an aspect of that. I think what I heard was with what Tim was saying about you is that you have a great willingness to grow, or have had a great willingness, first of all, and to grow and evolve and change. And that's beautiful. And perhaps you're able to listen and then incorporate that information and actually use it. And journalism is not surprising if you're a really good listener.
I definitely think I'm competitive.
Well, we talked about that. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm not a very competitive person. I compete with myself. I'm really not interested in, okay, let me reframe that. I am interested in the performance of others because that's the business that I'm in, but I'm not in the business of competing with them. I'm in the business of helping people be their best, whatever that looks like in the particular time and space that we overlap. But yeah. I'm more about evaluating my own performance than how someone else's. It's somebody else's performance is none of my business unless it's literally my business.
Yeah, I agree with I can relate with that.
Yeah. Just to put a little context on the table.
I play tennis, so
good. A little Venus and Serena action. Let's
you
go.
Need, I wish no.
I think you could make the argument, and Tim was alluding to this, but like I was very much a face of something for a long period of time, and so I felt the necessity to be that person that vocalized a lot of things. And at some point over the last 7 years, I don't even know how this started happening, but I was like, I wonder what would happen if instead of me being that person, I could take my wisdom and put that into others and see if that Zach Miller could be infected into others and see them on stage in other places. And the stage is a metaphor, if you will. And so they don't actually have to be on stage, but to see if that can happen. And so as I think I started to prove that, I think that's kind of the piece where it's now more meaningful for me to see that than to see this,
than to be
that thing.
Yeah. And I think what I believe what happens, and from my experience, is what I've seen happen when we have the willingness to ask the question. So your curiosity, that spark of insight where you said, what if, in the ... part, opened up space for something new to come in, for additional information. That is why bandwidth is so important and powerful, because when we are stressed and our bandwidth is here, literally your cognition shrinks and your ability to discern and make good decisions is limited. It is a threat response. It's biological. It's built into us. Threat assessment and response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Save me, fawn.
Fainting
So
goat.
all creatures, most creatures do that, even human ones. And so when that is happening, there's no creative thought. There's no room for creative problem solving. It is just about survival. And so here's the power of not only preserving your bandwidth, but having the ability and creating space. Sorry, I'm downtown Norfolk. Hello, Granby Street. To open up that bandwidth opens up the potential for creative thought. And so you asking the question and assuming that you didn't already have the answer allowed things to move differently. Just enough space for something new to come in there. And then you see what happens. It's almost magical, but it's also scientific.
I don't know if you picked up on this, Tim, but the bandwidth aspect of that, the stress aspect of that, I almost even, and Tim will remember this, so like is extremely unhealthy. Let me restart that.
Okay.
Back in the day, I was extremely unhealthy. Got rid of my office, opened up space, this window opens, right? Where the health kick kind of jumps in there and I start thinking about things differently. In that same time, I think that probably also opened up more of the business angle. And I never would have used the word bandwidth in there. So that's cool that you used that. But like,
I like that you used angle, though. We can circle back to that in a second.
Oh boy. See, I should not have opened this door.
No,
Any of
you
these
should,
doors with
because
scientists.
you're speaking from everybody's experience. We all have seasons, maybe right now. Mine was last year, God bless me, of real adversity.
Sure.
Whether it's self-imposed or just life is just doing what she is doing. And how we respond to those things matters. And people don't think that they have a choice and that they don't have agency. They do. But often people don't know how to do it. Instinctively, you started shifting. And often life makes things so uncomfortable sometimes that you don't have a choice but to shift. It's like, how much suffering are you willing to tolerate and endure before you decide to change, before you decide to grow, before you decide to evolve? Your life was calling to you, saying, hey, Zach, hey, Zach, hey, bro, Zach, can you hear me, Zach? Zach, like, that's how life is. That's how life is for all of us. I don't know about you, but that's exactly what happens for me. And so you answered, finally, however many times it called you, you're like, okay, let me just conceive of something, imagine something different. And then it all shifted and followed. And it sounds abstract, but literally it happens here, and then everything else cellularly follows.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello, Zach.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It is.
So,
Because
yeah.
I think about it from a entrepreneurial standpoint, and you think about the thousands of things that have to go right. And it just takes a couple things for it to go wrong. and then the whole thing falls. But then when you add the rest of life to that, your personal life, your social life, yeah, I mean, you're juggling a lot of things in
Right.
your brain. Your brain is processing so many things, that all of that has to go right so that everything is in sync with one another to
Yeah.
move
I,
ahead.
I don't know that I reject and avoid right wrong, because black white thinking,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that steals our bandwidth, just FYI. So we can say things going optimally, things moving in a positive direction, useful and helpful things happening versus things that are destructive, maladaptive, not helpful. The black white thinking, rigidity in the brain, bad, very bad for us, psychologically, physiologically, bad. And that bad good, in that sense, it's appropriate. So we like to think of things as, is this helpful or maybe not so helpful? Is it productive? Is it taking me towards something that I want, or is it keeping me further or slowing me down?
Right.
And you're right. There are so many domains in our lives that we are simultaneously managing and juggling. So having skill sets to be able to do that with adeptness is vitally important, particularly as an entrepreneur. So my other business, Eastern Auto Works, automotive repair, BMW specialist, 20 years, same location, Ingleside Road, right here in Norfolk. I've seen it. Automotive is a tough industry. It's a tough industry at the dealership level. It's another thing at the independent level. And so, there's physical demands. It's hot in Tidewater. So there's summer, it's dirty, you're working against hard metal. It's mostly male dominated. Self-awareness. Y'all aren't really taught to be self-aware. You're not really allowed to be self-aware. And even if you are, nobody cares in certain industries. So it's not the most healthy physically or psychologically environment. It's just not. And we've been entrepreneurs for a long time, my husband and I. It takes a lot, like you said, to be successful, for things to go well. We won't say right, well, consistently and persistently for those things to go well. And it's important that you do your work as an entrepreneur. You have to, because if you don't, you are contributing to and creating a toxic work environment. We went to a 4-day work week like 15 years ago, and people thought we were insane. Like, what? You're not open on the weekend? And you're not open on Mondays? To try to create some work-life harmony. So 4 intense 10-day work days or 10-hour work days, and then 3 days off. That's how we created more harmony in our organization. And as entrepreneurs, that's the beauty. You get to determine and guide your ship in a way that works for you and your team and your staff. So that agency is important. That is how we change industry. That is how we influence people's health and well-being and help people and support people with preserving their bandwidth. Not just taking and burning people up. And burnout is, it's real. You guys talk about this all the time in what you're doing. Burnout is real in entrepreneurship, and your business can't afford you to be burned out. There's too much at stake. There's too much on the line. Trust me, I know. I'm sitting here downtown Norfolk, building another business. I can't afford to be burned out because this thing doesn't run well without me at the helm well. And so I understand the importance of helping other founders find and preserve their bandwidth and also build business acumen. So this is where the psychology and the business come together. And I think it's incredibly powerful. And it's also my skill sets and my experience. And it's not just based on opinion, although there's some of that in there too. But more than that, it's, my education, my experience, and data. This is what the data says. So I can tell you anything. Everybody has an opinion. But let me tell you what the data and the research is showing time and time and time and time again, which increases your probability of success. And if you win,
Yeah, that's
I win.
interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. And just in the sense of, because, and you touched on it a little bit, but like, unless the pain is strong enough, you're not going to change. And
Most people. Some of us
what
are
do you
like,
mean?
yeah, let me just try that anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but so it's just, from your standpoint, it's just like, yeah, you might meet with someone once and they're like, oh, this is too difficult. This is too painful for me. But eventually the pain will, they'll endure something. They'll be like, let me revisit Tracy and find out
Yeah.
what's really going on here.
Yeah. And I think that's been the challenge with GLOM, because people think that and believe that this is important work for themselves. However, it's very easy to believe that it's not urgent. And with respect to your business, but also to me, with respect to your life, it's urgent for you to feel well, for you to be well, so that you can do well. And if there's anything that can accelerate that, why would you not want that? If we can reduce the length of the suffering and the amplitude of the suffering, why would you not want that? But it is a mindset and frame of mind shift, because a lot of times we use mindset inaccurately, because mindset really is studied as growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So it does apply, but it's really a frame of mind shift. Do I invest in myself, and do I see value enough in investing in getting these skills for a short period of time, so that this toolkit of mine is so strong that when I'm not working with GLOM, I can pull these cards out as I need to and play the deck the way I need to play it. That's my job, is to teach you the skills that you're not aware of, that you already have. You're just not aware of how to use them and play the deck. So then when we're not working together, you know what to do.
Right.
And you know when to do it. I don't want you codependent on me. That's not the game. That's not the goal. I want you to grow. And I want you to know how to grow. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it in the sense of your brain is a muscle, you have to use it in order to keep it strong. You stop going to the gym and you're going to get flabby. It's just one of those things. You got to continue to work it out.
That's right.
Work those muscles out to make them stronger.
That's right. And skill sets can be built, like you said, that reference is perfect. And learning which exercises to do and when to do them is key. And if you approach it like that kind of a workout, it's not scary. And it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm inept. It's like, no, we all have a brain. And there's all parts and pieces and elements of our brain that are untapped. And so there's something. To that, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, the first time anyone goes to the gym, guess what? You're going to be sore the next day.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be painful. But the thing is it starts small and continue to come back. And it's just the pain will go away. The lactic acid will be gone. You're going to continue to get stronger. You just got to get through that initial.
Yeah. And it's the habits, right? So there's something called the connectome. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And what the connectome science and studies measure the movement of water, fluid in the brain. And then you have different colors that represent different amounts of water. Look it up. It's so gorgeous. You've seen it before. As a matter of fact, Muse used a beautiful picture of a connectome brain on one of their album covers, maybe like 10 years ago. So anywho, what we think that does is represent the connections in your brain, the neural connections in your brain. And so when we're growing and we're young and we have that, a toddler, that big, big head and little baby body, all the neural synapses are spreading all over the place. And then we realize and we learn which ones are useful and adaptive and which ones we're not using. And so they get pruned back. And so to revisit neuroplasticity, the learning piece is this. If you've been doing something a certain way forever, it's kind of like the Grand Canyon. The river has created a pathway, and this is just how my brain does it. The brain loves patterns. It loves the path of least resistance. We are habitual creatures. It's, again, built into us, adaptive to save energy. But when we want to learn and we want to change a habit and we want to do something new, we have to reroute the water. So we learn, first of all, a new pathway. And this is why it literally hurts when you're learning something like you talked about when you go to the gym. It hurts for a minute, especially when you're older. It doesn't hurt as much as a teenager, but it still hurts. You have to create that new pathway. And then given the opportunity, the water's going to do what? It's going to go down the path that it's used to going down. So it requires energy and attention to push it the other way so that you create the new groove and the new habit. And then once that habit becomes new behavior, it's reflex again. So Colorado River doesn't go left anymore. It automatically knows to go right. But it takes a little bit of work and attention and effort to repeat that and to create those new neural connections. And so this is why self-awareness is important. Skill sets are really important, and support in doing that becomes vitally important, because if you are not skilled at it and you don't understand what you're doing, it's very difficult to know the roadblocks and where you're getting tripped up. And so someone who is skilled can help you and say, hold on, if first of all, we don't want to reinforce the bad habits or the maladaptive habits. Second of all, let me stand with you and remind you that you know how to do this. And this is the first step, and this is the second step. Or maybe you're getting hung up on the sixth step. And if there's 8 steps and you got it up to 4 or 5, and then we get on that 6th step and something's happening, I'm able to assess, okay, this is where you're stuck. Let's reinforce this habit, this tool, this strength, so you can get to 7, 8.
Or 6, 7.
Or 1, 2.
Okay. This is one of those episodes. It's not every episode, but this is one of those episodes where I sit here and I go, okay. And I'm wasting a minute while I do this, by the way.
No, it's fine. This is great.
But this is when I go, we should have a 2-hour show, because I got about 7 questions that I still wanted to get to, plus our normal question at the end, and Tim's probably got something. So anyway, kudos to you for that. Okay, I'll try.
Thanks, guys.
Buy-in from someone. I think that's
two. What? Yeah.
Well, I honestly, I think the answer is probably the same. From a prospect, from a customer upsell, maybe from someone that you're interested in, right? Like I believe that sales, we're literally always selling. And I think most people who are teammates, employees would disagree with that. But the person who's created a design that he then has to show to someone else, that probably has to be pitched for someone to buy into that.
Yeah.
And so from a customer teammate, like hiring a teammate, a co-founder, your spouse perspective, is there like a go-to checklist of things that people can do to get some buy-in from those individuals, or things that they need to be thinking about to get that buy-in? Because at the end of the day, they're pitching that thing for some result. Is there like, so like if it's a pitch deck in a pitch competition, or you're pitching to someone might say, okay, well, you want to establish the problem. What solution are you coming up with? And do you have any traction from that perspective? Is there anything like that, like a boom, boom, boom to get buy-in from someone?
I wish I had a formula that I know works.
Okay. So you're saying I made you hit a brick wall. You know,
I
just
won't
turn
say a
around.
brick
You hit
wall.
that
I
brick
will
wall.
tell you what I know from my personal experience and my personal brand. I find that I am more successful in person. And so I evaluate why. What does that mean? What is that telling me? It's telling me that experiential knowledge makes an impact in a way that very few other things can, which seems obvious. But I think it's very relevant. So if there's a way that you can make a person feel something, which we know in marketing and sales is a thing. I don't like the word sales. I think you're always promoting. And people can do that with stories because stories are compelling and they connect because people make decisions on emotion. Whether it's an emotion that you're making them feel, quote unquote, even though you say you can't make a person feel a thing, but whether it's an emotion that you're triggering, that you've crafted and you want them to experience, or you're doing a good enough job of sharing, I hope from an authentic place, that it resonates somewhere inside them. That is when people make a decision to move. But much like Tim said, you got to feel something. So sometimes the feeling is, I'm so uncomfortable. Now I'm willing, I'm desperate to not feel what I'm feeling. Hopefully we can move people before the desperation. And so I've had challenges with that with Glom because I really don't really want you when you're desperate. I can do that work. I can do
Yeah.
clinical work. It's not the space that I like to be in because it's a different level of effort for me to pull you back up to baseline if you're clinical.
Yeah, because I just think about that so many times. Someone will come to us and it's just like it's almost too late. I don't want to say
Yeah.
anything, but it's
Yeah.
just like if you would have come to me earlier,
Yeah.
then it would have been so much easier.
That's the client I want. And it breaks my heart to see so many businesses close their doors. I
Right.
used to be in Expansive, and so many businesses, well, I don't know, it's got a different name now. It's like on its fourth iteration. But so many businesses have closed their doors. And I'm like, if you would have just asked for help, if you would have just sat down and had a conversation and got a little bit of support, like you said, we could have perhaps created a strategy to stave off where you are now. But I think that's the biggest mistake of entrepreneurs and really small businesses. They don't ask for help. And sometimes it's shame, which I know a little bit about. I wrote a thesis about it. Um, yeah, shame. It is fear of not wanting to listen to someone else, believing that they have it all figured out. Most of the time, often it's money, which I get, but it's like you can't afford not to ask for the help if things are going to fall apart and then you're going to lose everything that you've invested. So both of those things are important. I think that being able to reach your target audience and your consumer with some sort of authentic feeling that helps them understand this is the transformation. This is the transformation that you will get from my product, from my innovation, from my services, from this experience. And so that's one of the things that I've built into the Glom business model, which I think is very unique and niche, particularly for this area, is well-being experiences. Because when you can meet a professional whose bandwidth is this, with a beautiful environment, sensory experience that resets the vagus nerve so that you come back to baseline and create and recapture some of that bandwidth that we were talking about, Zach. That's priceless. To be able to come and be restored in a therapeutic way that's not therapy, because I understand all the things. All the elements are in there. It's food, it's the lighting, it's the smells, it's the sound, it's the environment, and it's the facilitation that I do. And I'm giving you some tools and some tips in the experiences, all of them. They're all in a different way. And that allows people to, wow, I didn't even know I needed that. I'm like, but I did. Because I need it. So, and then you take that and you go back and you reset and you can be better and you can do better and you can do more. And then you're able to come back and refill your cup when you need to. And so the well-being experiences that I host are easy access to less threatening work. And when you're ready to dive deep and grow, then you work one-on-one with me, or you join the Claim Your Vision program.
I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but it's something that I know Tim and I have just consumed content from and have followed for a while. Are you familiar with the musician Jelly Roll?
Yeah, vaguely, yes.
Okay,
He just lost a lot of weight, right? And he has lots of tattoos.
Yeah, okay. And so he goes into some of the reasons why he got to where he was, but he was at rock bottom, right? And very unfortunate that he was there, but since has lost, I think, near 300 pounds since this time. Great story from that perspective. Knowing that a lot of people probably feel like they're in a similar situation, whether that being overweight or upside down in business, in a situation similar to someone who is that doesn't feel like there's a way out.
Yes.
Is there something like Jelly Roll said, I need to believe in my family, or something similar to that, and that's why I finally, I didn't want to be that guy that just died, and that was his way out of it, and he finally got through it. And so I think some of the stuff that you were just talking about from business is just asking and piece like that, where maybe there's a shame, spinning of the business, a little bit of a pivot. Those are all very meaningful pieces, but like knowing that it's time to actually take that action. Is that something that's easy for someone to look in the mirror and do? Is there a reason?
No, it takes immense courage. It takes immense amounts of courage to accept that you don't have it all figured out. But none of us do. That's the whole point. So you go to sources that are credible. So many people I hear today going to AI for emotional support. And I think there's some utility there. And trust me, I might talk to you guys about, building an app here because there's a market for it, clearly. And it's beautiful that people are finding some level of relief. And I think what it is an outlet. People want to know they're being heard, even if it's an artificial intelligence. But let me tell you, you need some natural intelligence when it comes to your brain. This is a very, very, very fragile, very powerful, but very fragile organ. And so I don't believe we should play games with it. So getting qualified help and support, whether you're clinical or not. And again, I don't function and work in the clinical space. I would like to be with you before you're clinical to keep you from becoming clinical. But I understand it because that is my training and that is, my education. There are plenty of things that can be done before you get to that space. But it takes courage to admit that you don't have that aspect or that domain of your life figured out. And it's okay because I have advisors and people that I talk to and mentors because I don't have it all figured out in business or in the work that I'm doing. I know what I know, and I'm confident in what I know. And I'm pretty confident in the things that I don't know. And I'm happy to ask somebody else for that. And that is self-awareness, and that is self-acceptance.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me, because like in terms of like the question I was going to ask, and I think you just answered, is like, how long do you meet with a client before you're like, I can't be your mom? And so that's when perhaps that's when it's time that you either learn these tools that I taught you, or you need to take the next step. And
this is why we always assess. That's the first thing I do with clients is assess. I need to know where you are so I know where I start and where we start. Yeah. So assessment is key. Exactly. Assessment is key. So we know where we're at, and so we know where to go. So when somebody calls you and says, I'm lost, I need directions, the first thing I ask is, give me context. I need a reference point. Where are you?
Yeah.
And people can't tell me if they're heading east or west.
So you're saying
And we live
not
on the
I'm not a
coast.
lion. I'm really not going to be a lion in this whole thing in the
No,
VA
there's no
character
lions
survey.
in the VIA survey. There's no
So,
lions. But courage.
this-
But courage is one of the strengths. So we'll see where you are
I
on
do
courage.
just watch Wicked Part 2, and
Okay.
the lion does make a cameo. So
Okay.
rawr.
Okay. Courage is important. It really is. It really is. This is like, man, it's so easy to talk to you guys. I don't know if we talked about any of the things that need to be talked about, but I trust that we did.
It
Trust that
was
we did.
a lot of fun. And to Zach's point, there are so many things that we did not get a chance to talk about.
Well, we could talk for a long, long time. And hopefully
Yes.
we will. I'll see you guys around.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that we end our show with always is we've been trying to understand, is there a food of the region? How can we brand our region? So many things are branded around food. Buffalo wings, New York style pizza, Detroit style pizza, you got barbecue. Do we have such a thing here in the region? And if so, what is it?
In our Tidewater region, not the
Yeah.
mid-Atlantic, but specifically
Right.
here. Well, we don't have Philly cheesesteaks. We do have some pretty rockin' seafood in a lot of places. I think our oysters are pretty amazing, but I don't know if we're known for those. I don't know if we have a regional food culture, but I will tell
Yeah.
you that there are some French fries over here at the Norfolk Seafood Co. right on Tazewell. And they're called Thermidor. Let me tell you, normally I don't do cheese and seafood, but these are like a lobster fondue over really fresh cut, hand cut French fries. And they also do, I think, a Thermidor meal, but listen, get the fries. That
Wow.
should be what we're known for, is these Thermidor lobster cheese fries. That's what I say. That's my endorsement, and I don't have
That's a
any
debut
kickback or anything.
A debut item.
They're amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thermidor?
Thermidor. I'm pretty sure that's what they call them. Yes. I don't think I'm wrong. Look them up. I think it's on their website.
Right,
We didn't talk about my
You're a
aura
scientist.
ring and the data. It's okay. We'll talk another time about it.
Episode 2. Tim's got an aura ring. I got a whoop.
Come on, data. See, Are you
Yeah.
resilient? Is it telling you?
Should I unplug
How's your
my?
resilience? Okay.
Yeah, I
don't
pay
have
very
a-
close attention to it.
Is your resilience high?
Let me look.
Well, let's not.
I had a great night's sleep last night.
Can
As
we?
did I.
Okay, well, yesterday I had my first 100 sleep score. Just shout out to me.
100. Wow.
Well,
Look
shout
at you.
out.
That's a great example to set for the people. I was going to talk about brain health, and sleep is one of those things. Incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think that's becoming a big thing that people are talking about. So
I think it's just because we're getting older, y'all.
I don't
These
know.
20-somethings could run on 4 hours of sleep. I used to be her, but it's bad for the brain. Very bad for the brain.
Tim, final score? Where are we? Your resilience score.
Where is mine today? Let's see.
My recovery score, which I'm assuming is the same thing, is a 69.
Okay, so you're
I think I
about
need to be in the
average.
7. I think I need usually 60 actually.
We can aim higher than that, Zach.
I know.
We can aim
I
higher.
know. I blame it on. I don't know what I blame it on. Yeah,
As
sure.
long as you know. Again, like when we first started and he's like, oh, Zach's coming back. Like, listen, I don't need to know. As long as you're aware. That's the key.
Well, he
You
just knew
understand
that
that your
he and I
own
had a talk.
variables.
Yeah, he was.
You and your own variables. That's the key. It's none of my business. I don't need to know. As
There you
long
go.
as you are aware of the things that are going on in your life, and then you can turn the levers so that, in the next couple of days, we get better than a 60 sleep score. Or no, you got 100. 100 sleep score, that's going to bring your data up. That's pretty good. That's strong.
Thank you.
I feel bad for whomever was sleeping with you because you probably were snoring so hard. I'm making assumptions, but oh well.
Yeah, my cardiovascular is now 2.5 years younger, which
Okay, that's
that
strong.
continues to grow. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I do pay pretty close attention to.
But I
I
like
get
that you
it.
talked about fitness earlier and reference fitness because again, it's not just the physical fitness. It is our psychological fitness. That psychological health and well-being is everything
Yeah,
because the body follows the brain. This is what I need people to understand. The body follows the brain, not the opposite. Not the opposite. Exercise, that's beautiful, it's helpful, it's a tool, it's important. You need your heart strong, you need your muscles strong, and all that. All of that happens because the brain is regulating that.
And if you're interested in more of that, stay tuned for episode 2 coming up.
So fun,
soon.
guys. So fun.
Thank you.
Tracy, this has
Thank you
been
so
great.
much.
Thank you. Looking forward to part 2. Just
Yeah,
let me
this
get
has
that on the
been really
calendar.
fun. Really fun.
Thanks, Amber Hamilton, for the intro. Shout out to her. And thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, watch, download, share. I don't know. What else?
All
What
the
am I missing
things.
there, Tim? All the things. Yes.
All the
Tracy, pleasure. Part
Thank you,
2 coming up.
guys.